We did it.
You look how I feel.
We made it.
Dads get it done. Her name is Osha, right? It is Osha.
For yes,
Osha
OSHA
and
and May.
May.
God, I
Yeah.
should get IMDb open again.
Yeah, I got my open just in case. But like I said, sometimes you know what? Not having confidence in what you're saying is more dangerous than what you actually know. Because you might know some stuff, but just because you don't sure if you know it or not makes it like you don't know it. It's really
Well, God, I probably it is kind of hilarious. So there's the Dunning-Kruger effect,
Dunning-Kruger. What's that?
which ironically people get the study wrong, and I might be doing so right now. But Dunning-Kruger basically is the idea that the people that really don't know shit about a topic,
Hmm.
right, an area of expertise, they don't know how ill-informed they are about said topic. And so their confidence level is just off the chart. They're like, oh, this job's really simple, this thing I've never done before. And then,
Right.
you know, people that are super deep into the weeds on the topic that are actually knowledgeable
Right.
also know how much they don't know
Okay. Yeah.
because they've spent, 10 years building to a PhD or something. They're like, this is a pebble on a giant planet worth of knowledge on just this one topic. And so
Right.
they quibble and equivocate and, have more doubt and I think are just humbled a bit more. So,
So, question: which one would you rather deal with?
oh, I'd absolutely rather deal with someone that knows what they're talking about, but
Hmm.
very readily admits the limits of their knowledge. That goes and says, I'm not sure about that. I'd have to look that up. I'd much rather deal with someone it just admits their limits,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure about this.
Yeah.
This part I'm not so sure. We could look that up, blah, 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 blah. I mean,
Right. I agree. I want the same thing. The funny thing is, I think a lot of times we deal with the latter because usually the person who's self-assured, they're also assertive and also will get the
the
positions. They
loudest
also speak.
motherfuckers in the room.
Exactly. So I think that's why we deal with a lot of that in real world because those are the ones that also speak up. Not equipped necessarily, but they're fast to talk and they'll have that confidence. But then
Hmm.
the way society is, we'll let that person stay propped up just because, and not call it out for what it is because it almost shows that you made a mistake by letting them in.
Oh, well, that now we're getting to something. I heard the term the other day. It's called identity collapse.
Mm.
And so it's essentially like when someone's belief system
Hmm.
totally just falls apart in front of them. Well, they've built their whole identity on it.
Right.
And so their identity collapses. And so that is why a lot of people anything that would come in to do that,
Hmm.
anything that would challenge their worldview or their belief system or their big opinion that they've had about ooh, Disney's bad.
Right.
Like they just shut down whatever would challenge that because it would cause identity collapse because they've built up who they are about this thing. And if that thing falls apart, then who are they?
Wow. I can
So,
believe that. I think I've seen that happen. That makes sense. That would contribute for sure.
oh yeah.
Yeah, depending on the person, because you have to know the person at a certain level to know that's what's going on. A lot of times we'll see the after effect and don't know what triggered it. But I'm sure it's a lot of that going on. Yeah, especially when you trap your life in things that don't really matter that you have no control over. And I mean
Oh
in
yeah.
control over like somebody else's yard versus your own yard that's on fire. I'm talking
Oh,
about like that. So yeah, if your life is the neighbor's yard, you will forever have problems because you will
hmm.
never get a grip on something that was never yours. So it's interesting.
Don't join an HOA.
Just say no. Just say no. How was your week?
Um, okay, I had today off, which was nice. Juneteenth, whole
Yeah.
company in the US got the day off. It's
Yeah.
nice to see that holiday getting more than just sort of hand wavy acknowledgement, but actually giving the company a day off, so that was cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Same.
Did freaking chores all day, but
You sound like me. Did some housework, trying to do some purging. I need to get stuff pulled away. I'm trying to stop eating dessert first. I'm trying to make sure I do stuff and get the family in line to do stuff that's going to help us in the long run instead of us always just getting to the good part, which is nothing wrong with that. But
Right.
when you kind of look up and, you know, your life is obese and not in a good way, you know, you have to do something about it. You got to start being like, hey, okay, if stuff is falling apart, that's more important, and we're still enjoying and not feeling that we have to earn what we're getting. What's the brakes on that? What's the acknowledgement of, hey, this is too much, or just say no? It's none of that. It's just like skip to the good part, and that's not true to life. Even though we enjoy it and it's fun, it's easy to do, it's nothing better than, and even though it's hard to do for some people, to earn it, to kind of do what's right and kind of quote unquote suffer so you could get the dessert at the end. You know what I mean?
A little bit of delayed gratification.
Exactly, which it ties to everything, and that process really does tie to everything. So if you practice it on small levels, then it's easier for big levels. But if you just used to just getting what you want, that's not the real world. And if you can't control anything outside your world, you need to be prepared for the fact that, you know, if things work out smoothly for you and quickly, hey, that's icing. But technically, you know, it's a lot of vegetables before you get that dessert.
Well, we're not really built for long-term payoffs. Short-term thinking, short-term
True.
gratification.
Not on accident. Not on accident.
You know,
Um, okay, let's see. Hmm. Do you hear that?
what particular sound?
Of one, of two, of many.
What? Oh, jeez, it took a second. I thought you were talking the fan I got in the background. I was like I thought you were like whom, like making a humming noise, like of one. Good
That,
harmonics, good harmonics there. Jeez.
let's get
Oh,
on the show before they get us. Let's get on the show. I'm gonna be good. You ready?
do it.
All right. Five, four, three, two.
Power of two. The power of many.
It's Jay. I'm back again for another one, and tonight I have with me.
A very tired father, Ryan.
How are you doing, man? How are you holding up?
My wife finally. I don't know why it took so long for this tactic to finally kick in. Again, Dana used to be a nanny for like a decade,
Right, right.
and I've got a 3-year-old that is sleeping in bed with me currently. Dana's in the other bed in the side room with the 4-month-old.
Oh, divide and conquer.
It's mostly to just keep the two children soundproofed away from each other without, finally moving one of them into the kids' room.
Right, right.
But good God, my little guy, he crawls and wiggles all over me in the bed for so damn long, trying to get his energy out. And Dana was finally like, just, get in bed,
Mhm.
and then tell him you're gonna go to the bathroom and you'll be right back.
Yeah,
And then just wait 5 minutes. And I was
I'll be
like,
knocked out.
I was like, I'll try it. And I tried it the other night.
Yeah,
It didn't work the first time, worked the second time. Tonight, first try. Kid was out. Oh,
beautiful.
that shortcutted like a half an hour of additional like
I
please go to bed, please go to bed, please go to bed.
hope our
Success,
listeners are
progress.
listening to that tip that Ryan just gave you, that jewel. I hope that that helps you fathers out there with young ones that's trying to get some sleep or a moment to yourself, either or both. So we are talking about the Acolyte.
Episode 3 and 4. And to
Yes.
prove us wrong yet again, we were like, oh, they're doing the double name thing.
Mhm.
Justice Revenge on the episodes. I bet they'll do that all. No, they immediately got rid of the double name convention for the episodes.
Yeah.
Ah,
You know, surprises us. You know, that's just how it happens. But we have episode 3 that's called Destiny, and then we have episode 4, which is called Day.
And, we might have gotten the naming prediction wrong, but the flashback,
Hmm.
pretty sure I called that.
Yeah, you did. You did.
Whole episode, one giant flashback.
Yeah, a lot of flashback. I will say flashback was interesting. We definitely got more insight of what was going on. I don't know. It was interesting that both this episode and the next episode, they took a long time to do something simple. Like, I won't say it was dragging necessarily, but it did stay on the same thing. It's a lot of exposition for sure. We got to learn a lot of new stuff.
They're setting up a bunch of stuff.
Yes, and they refer to themselves as witches and immaculate conception.
Oh, well. So this is the okay. Oh, God.
Via the dark side.
So, oh geez. So, man, this caused some people to lose their effing minds online. So let's go back to Phantom Menace, because this is where it got introduced the first time.
Mhm.
Where Qui-Gon's asking Anakin's mother, Shmi, I think I'm pronouncing that, Shmi Skywalker, like, who's the father? And she's like, there was no father. Just, and I don't remember if she said anything more, but it was basically like, you just, like, there was no. So there's, like, the Force, basically, immaculate conceptioned Anakin. And for the next decade or so, it's still all the legacy canon. And there was, like, a book that kind of, like, went into it a little bit. But basically, it was just like, the Force created Anakin Skywalker. And then in the Disney canon, it's still the same thing. The Force created Anakin Skywalker. Now, with the witches, I did not read it as the Force created the twins. It was they, the witches, used the Force to somehow create the twins. Though that is not A equals B.
Okay, there was no man involved, and so the way I took it, it was kind of like, yeah, they call it the thread, but it's still the same source, which I thought was kind of cool. They acknowledge it's the same thing. They call it different things, and they're kind of questioning how people treat that thing, that source or whatever.
Right, it's a different cultural viewpoint.
Right,
Cool.
they're more like
board.
Yeah, they're more like airbenders and things like that. They have that more of nature vibe, even though the Jedi kind of have that too. It's a different. Jedi is more militant in a way. Their structure, not saying that they don't have structure, but they do have this whole Mother Earth going on.
Well, and we don't know if they're a splinter faction of the Witches of Dathomir, or they're just another set of witches. Right. They seem very aesthetically different from the Witches of Dathomir.
Yes. So the whole thing with that whole thing, even with Anakin's mother, so it's like either what she's saying is right, and that the Force is impregnating women and running off, and so is the devil. There's a lot of devil possessions of babies being born as well. So either that's going on, or the woman that we never seen or heard of before is lying.
Well, and see, this is another thing. They'll get into another thing in episode 4.
We gonna take her word for it, or we gonna go by how babies are normally made? Which one do you believe? The Force did it, or somebody just don't want to tell who they slept with?
This is one of those things where with Shmi, like, I think in the books they clarify that she wasn't lying, but
I'm just being funny.
but when we are looking at things like this, when someone says a thing in fiction,
yes,
we always have to ask the question of, one, are they lying? Two, are they telling the truth as they understand it? And is that an actual truth? Because just because someone says X doesn't mean it's true. Right? Because you can get people that, like, everyone believes a cultural truth, but it's not real. Right? So, but as far as, like, Shmi goes, as far as all the lore goes, yes,
I know.
Anakin was created by the Force, blah blah blah. And this is the whole thing with episode 3. There is still so much we don't know about what happened. We don't know how the twins were conceived using the Force. right? It doesn't seem like the Force did it. It seems like they used the Force, just the way they structured the language
Hmm.
and the whole thing with the rest of the episode. There's still so many things that happened off screen that they so stuck with May and not, I'm not sorry, Osha. They stuck
Yeah,
with Osha,
yeah,
and we get a little bit of Soul at the end. Like with the whole burning of the thing down, I find it impossible to believe that May, who takes the lamp and drops it
exactly.
outside Osha's door, that it caught the whole fortress on fire. The,
Yeah, and then all the witches is laid out perfectly on the floor when they walking out. There's no fire
right?
in the area that they're in. They kind of
They're
walking
not
past them.
burned. There
I'm
doesn't seem
like,
to be any
yeah,
wounds.
right. So I'm like,
So
so what's going on with that? And it seemed like they would go for their children. So that whole thing was interesting. But like I said, even before that, they were kind of talking about how they were kind of chased out and killed and
mhm,
everything. So they're kind of on the run and they're kind of hiding. And I think they're hiding because they're dealing with things that others don't feel that they should be dealing with. So it's one of those kind of things that you're chosen to go this route and you get kind of outcasted, right? But it seems like they
right.
wanted to take them out before that. So they outcasted themselves, just for survival reasons.
It
Um,
definitely seemed like they were feeling persecuted, and they
right,
probably were, right?
right,
And that's a question of because they were doing dark side stuff, because they
right.
were just Force users, and people were like, "Well, you're witches, you're not Jedi, so you must be
Right.
bad." Who knows?
Right. Or it could
Um,
be the kind of thing with Doctor Strange, with the ancient one, where she was using dark magic to kind of hold things together. So
right,
it was an unlimited source, and some felt it was like wrong to even dabble in it, and it was like this battle she constantly had, but it was a source of power that she needed to keep things together. So we
right.
really don't know, but like there's a lot of exposition. There's letting us know what's going on. You kind of get to set up for the girls and their personalities and what they're wanting. One of the girls wanted to be a Jedi, even though I'm sure she probably never heard anything good about them, but yet and still she wanted to be a Jedi. The other one wanted to
Yep.
follow in the footsteps of her mothers, and wanted to even the kind of how they even revealed the thing about them having two moms was interesting.
Right. The Zabrakian was the one that carried the girls.
Well, no, no, not that part. Just the fact that you met them, who you believe to be their mother in the beginning, and then they walk off and they're going to get prepared, and then you see a woman in the background. They yell "Mother!" So you know that there's two because they was walking with one, and then when the other one showed up, they ran to her
Ah,
and called
yes.
her mother as well,
Yeah.
which isn't a problem. But I just kind of noticed stuff like that, how things are laid, how things are fed out. But the exposition was interesting, and it's the usual thing with twins where only thing that's the same about them is how they look, and the personalities are just very, very different. So it was interesting to kind of see them going through that, and one ready for the ritual, the other one's not so sure, don't want to do it, and they, get kind of pretty much presented for the ceremony, and they're in the middle of the ceremony. But there is talk about Jedi's being in the area, and they're concerned about that to the point where they don't even want them out and about because
Right.
they could be seen.
And of
And
course, it's already too late because Soul spotted them.
exactly. It starts off with him even kind of following them in the woods while they were playing before dinner, quote unquote. But the whole thing with the fire, and I thought it was pretty extreme when it got to the point where, the Jedi finds them. They respect, I guess, the procedure. So they're saying, like, okay, we'll let you test the children.
It implies so many things about like they kind of get to some of it where it's like we're not inside the Republic, where it's like, okay, in the Republic you do have authority,
Right.
but they're also like, we're just testing them. We're not taking them. It's like it's their choice, like da
Right.
da da. But it still feels like, but you should let us test them,
Yeah.
right? And it seems like there's this whole thing of like, but you're not supposed to have any kids, right? We test kids. We're the ones that get trusted with
Hmm.
force sensitive kids, or at least
Right.
get first dibs, first rights.
Right. Right.
So it's implying a lot of stuff.
Hmm. And they definitely don't feel good necessarily about the Jedi's. They see them almost as the enemy. I thought it was kind of interesting too that they kind of seem like they're takers of children. And then I guess in a way, I don't know. I think it's kind of neat the fact that they are showing a different perspective because somebody always do look like the hero until you spend a day with the villain and then you see like, oh, well, maybe this isn't quite what I thought it was.
Right.
So I think that's almost even a safer way to give you more insight from a different angle versus just flipping up what you had and making it totally different. And you're like, wait a minute, that's not fair. You don't make this person into a bad guy just because, this episode requires it. it's slicker and smarter to have it through a perspective of somebody else and roll through them and their perspective, because their perspective could be really true, and it
Right.
won't seem like you're tainting who we know for what they earned with us. And
Right.
so I think it's a very good way to tell stories and to give different angles and stuff versus, like I said, just compromising the character for an episode or to prove a point when you need it.
Yeah, and I think I don't know if it's in the trailer or if it's a line someone delivered. I think it might have been Mother, but it was something about like it's a question of who gets to wield power, right? With the default assumption for us outside of the universe being like, oh, well, the Jedi, right? But there's other people like you just get to come in and just nab our kids. Not quite. Like that's their fear that they're just going to take the kids,
Right.
right? There's still a bunch we don't know, but I do like that at least in the flashback that we've seen so far, the Jedi seemed pretty reasonable.
Yes.
I would say Indara, Carrie-Anne Moss,
Mhm.
was a little hard, but she also wasn't like pushing to escalate at any point. There's a funny bit where like, what was it? It was either May or Osha had come forward already and was talking to Soul, and things got a little tense. And I think they did the blackout eyes on Torben,
Yes.
and it was
Yes.
Soul who like whipped out his lightsaber, but to present it to Osha for her to look at.
Mhm.
And it was just like the way he did it seemed like the director trying to trick us into
Yes.
thinking, oh shit, he's gonna
Right. Exactly.
with this like big gesture to pull it, and it should have just been like holding up one hand like
Exactly.
one sec, click, I'm gonna take this off my belt here, would you like.
Yes.
It's like let's not do anything fast or quick here, let's all be
Yeah.
cool, we're trying to
Yeah.
be cool, right?
Like walk into a strange room, you don't just slam the door open. You can get
Right.
shot.
It did seem like the one thing that was like that
Right.
felt like the hand of the director trying to ramp
Mhm.
things up when they're not actually going to ramp things up, right?
Or he gave even a signal that he thought about what he was doing and like, you know what? Let me switch this up.
Right.
Let's not fight with fire. At least if he would have showed himself catching himself or something. But to move like
Right.
that with a calm face the whole time, that was kind of out of pocket a little bit to me.
And I mean, credit to again Indara, when Torben gets his eyes and like collapses on the floor, she doesn't like bust out the lightsaber. She's like, hey,
Right.
like let's be cool.
Right.
So at least from what we see, the Jedi don't do anything crazy. I think we have not. So the other thing is I saw someone online when this episode came out, people were like, man, what's gonna happen? Like there were so many people like, we haven't seen everything, why do you guys take what is just presented as all that we're going to see and the correct thing, and that there's not additional information? And someone was like, look, if you look at the director listed for this episode, it's so and so, and they are also listed as the director of episode 7, so we're probably going to get more of the flashback because what has been presented is clearly incomplete. Right? So because we didn't see how all those witches died, we didn't see how the mother died, we didn't see how the fire spread, we didn't see how Torben got all the scars on his face, which for eagle-eyed people at the end of the episode, he's standing at the back of the spaceship and you can see he already has the scars on his face.
Yeah.
So other shit went down.
I don't know, but it goes with the culture, like we'll have a 3-hour conversation about a trailer and think what's going to happen. So of course people are going to do that episode to episode. That's just the nature of the culture. And then, like I said, people are already sensitive about this show. And, in a way, depending on the person, it's fair in a way.
If dear listener, would you like me to call out a thing I had issues with in the episode? Here we go. So,
not saying that you have to. I'm not.
But it's it's got a few weird things. So when May lights Osha's door on fire, and I checked this like 20 minutes ago. I went and pulled up that little part of it because when I first watched it, I was like, how the hell is that fire spreading so damn fast?
Right.
It took me out of it of like, this is like ridiculous. And here's I think what was screwing me up is I assumed because it all looks like rock and stone.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm like, it's a metal door that all looks like stone. Like I don't see. It just seemed like it was spreading crazy fast, and it was
Oh,
only like,
real quick, that whole door lit up and stuff. It almost looked like
uh-huh.
Vader's helmet with the eyes lit up and stuff.
I
It
did
felt
kind of have that thought when I saw it
it
again to
felt
like
kind of
20
like
minutes
that.
ago. I was like,
Okay, kind of
oh,
felt
my
like
Vader
that. Like,
thing, and I'm like, that seems way too fucking on the nose. Please tell me they didn't.
I don't
But the
know.
other thing I was thinking this morning, I was like, what? Because I didn't quite track it when
Mhm.
she did it, but she like picked the thing off the wall, and it's a lamp.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a lamp. It's like a sci-fi lamp because it's doing weird glowy things inside of it. But there's two little flames, and that's what she used to light OSHA's, diary aspiration Jedi thing.
Yeah.
But I'm like, oh, it's like an oil lamp.
Mhm.
Like, if it's supposed to be, it's filled with flammable fuel. I'm like, oh, I can kind of get it now. And if that's what they were going for, they should have done a better job of showing the
Yeah.
liquid, the fuel spreading across the floor and just light. If they had done that little thing, it wouldn't have taken me out of it at all.
It,
But
it,
it
it,
took me out of it really hard.
but could it have that much fuel in it to do that kind of? I thought the same thing. It was so quick, and I was also thinking like the way it would. First, I was thinking like, what's on fire? How did it
Hmm.
catch on fire? And then even seeing where it came from, it's just like then it would spread that far, and nobody would do nothing. Like it would get that far. It was just it was just a lot. It was like a straw house. It'd be different, but it's just like you said, they're in caves. It looked like, and it looked like. So I'm like, what's on fire? And to be like that, as a kid, I might have, liked to play with fire a little bit when I was a kid. And that would be my dream for everything just to burst into flames that easily. I was trying to do, the tire tracks from Back to the Future.
When this baby hits 88 miles per hour, you're gonna see some serious shit.
In my driveway, and I couldn't get that gasoline to light. So,
Thank God.
only reason I'm talking about it because nothing happened. But I'm just saying, I wish flames would just, light them, and that's all you need. And you have your fire trails in the driveway.
Yeah.
I'm glad
So
it didn't. I would have been dead. But you've been talking to my Force ghost, but it worked out.
But yeah, I don't know what they were trying to do. It took a day for me to clock that
Yeah.
was essentially an oil lamp. And that's why it spread so fast. And it was just a missed communique. They didn't make it explicit that that's what was happening. If they had, it would have been like, oh, okay, I get it. Right. But yeah, that's my main complaint with the entire episode.
So, what did you think about the women's retreat yoga chant?
Power of one. The power of two. The power of many.
Well, I did
I'm just
see.
I'm just
No.
messing with you, but
You weren't the only one. I saw
But-
tons of people online being like, it was fucking awkward, it was campy, it was weird. And I think the best response I saw to it was like, have you not seen a cult?
right,
Like,
no, it's online for cult.
And also, like, if you're of a particular denomination and then you go and visit some other denomination or
That's real.
entirely different religion, you're like, what
Yeah.
are these fucking lunatics doing?
Right,
And it's like, if they came and saw your stuff, they'd be like, what are these lunatics doing?
right,
So,
true.
I mean, it was like, okay, power one, power two, which could be like, also the Sith sort of master apprentice, but then the power of all. So it's like,
Well, it's like a mantra for sure. So they're talking about
Exactly.
togetherness is all. Like it's all
Right.
is one. It's the same like Transformers.
Like
The one, two
go
is
to
more.
Rogue One. I can never pronounce his name. Tony Jaa's character, right? The
Okay.
blind,
The
not
blind.
quite. I think he was a follower of the Wills or whatever like that.
Yeah.
But his mantra, the force is with me. I am one with the force. The force is with
Mhm.
me. Or I'm probably bastardizing, but it's like
Yeah, it was a
in
mantra.
a different context, that would be fucking weird and campy too. So
Yeah.
it didn't really bother me. I know. I think some people are going into things trying to find things to hate on, but I can also understand people like that's kind of weird and creepy. But it's like it's a fucking cult. I don't know what to
Yeah.
say.
I'll say it like this. Depending on what it is, if you walk into it at any point, for the most part, you know where you're at. we have to admit that this is not typical Star Wars. Like, if
Right.
you walked into that, you would not know what you were watching. You would take you a minute and be like, wait, what's this? You know, not, regardless of what's going on, who's chanting or whatever, or the girls walking around, you would not walk into that and be like, oh, oh, Star Wars. No,
Right.
no.
It's net new.
So even though people probably put an extra stink on it, the foundation that's a thing too, though. That's the foundation of that too.
Yeah.
Just
And,
like when Star Trek 3, when it was like all this action and dirt bikes in the sky, people if people
God.
would have walked into that movie, they'd have been like, da 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 da. Wait a minute, what's this? And then they'd be like, oh, it's Star Trek. And they'd be like, oh crap, this isn't Star Trek. People got mad. Now, was it a good movie? Yes, it was a good movie. Good action and fighting, yes. But was it a Star Trek movie? No, it was not a Star Trek movie. And so that's kind of what we're dealing with this. And so when you saw a dirt bike on Star Trek, you knew it wasn't going to be your daddy's Star Trek.
Right.
It was going to be your daddy's Star Trek.
Well,
and so
and, you know,
people went in there and watched it knowing that and just kind of swallowed their tongue the whole time because it was just conflicting with all they knew to be Star Trek. And so that's what's going on with this. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but I'm saying that's the rub.
I too was like, the fuck? Dirt bikes? All right.
It was extreme.
I enjoyed the movie, but there was parts that were like, what are we doing? What are
Like,
we doing?
you know, Star Trek doesn't roll like this. So this is the same thing. People walking in like, what the crap? You know?
But the other thing also with sort of like, you know, surprise expectations of like, what? This doesn't feel like Star Wars. They're doing weird stuff, blah, blah, blah. So with the Witches of Dathomir,
Yes.
to roll back to the Clone Wars cartoon, and also a whole thing of like force conception, right, and creating life. The Witches of Dathomir brought back Darth Maul's dead brother. They practiced necromancy. We saw necromancy on Ahsoka,
Yeah, we did.
right? So
They had better aim than the ones that were alive.
yes, they did. So you know, it's always tricky when it's like, well, we have an established magic system.
Mhm.
The Jedi can do this, and it's like, well, Luke could do that, and then every time we move the story along or backwards or outwards or whatever,
Right.
someone has a new way of using the Force. Someone has an entirely different
Like what
magic system that uses the Force.
Like
right?
what Ryan Johnson did, and they got mad at him because Leia was up there ghost riding the stars. The people had an issue with that, and that was a dude who did that. They didn't like Luke's attitude. And matter of fact, you know, Hamill didn't like what he was writing for Luke and telling him, like, hey, you know, I played this character for years. The fans are going to be mad.
I said to Ryan, I said, Jedis don't give up. I mean, even if he had a problem, he would maybe take a year to try and regroup. But if he made a mistake, he would try and right that wrong. So right there, we had a fundamental difference. But it's not my story anymore. It's somebody else's story. And Ryan needed me to be a certain way to make the ending effective. That's the crux of my problem. Luke would never say that. I'm sorry. Well, in this version, see, I'm talking about the George Lucas Star Wars. This is the next generation of Star Wars. So I almost had to think of Luke as another character. Maybe he's Jake Skywalker. He's not my Luke Skywalker, but I had to do what Ryan wanted me to do because it serves the story well. But listen, I still haven't accepted it completely, but it's only a movie. I hope people like it. I hope they don't get upset. And I came to really believe that Ryan was the exact man that they needed for this job.
And he even said that to, you know, to the writer director. So like I said, so this is not new.
No.
Not that it makes it better or worse. But I'm just saying this is kind of not new. But I will say people have been consistent about things not lining up to, and not to have to be exactly what it was before, because sometimes we get that too. Like when we got the remakes, basically that J.J. Abrams, like that was pretty much a regurgitation. He did the same thing with Star Trek, and he just kind of gives you more of the same and glosses it over. And even though those are easy to go down because they went down before, he's not really adding anything necessarily new to it. And so,
He is. He is, but nothing you want to keep.
Right. So, I don't know. This is I don't know. I guess certain things could be too precious. I don't know. I just think there's a fine line for everything, and it's not easy to find out what that is without hitting that third rail. It's just hard. It's a real tough dance. It's a real tough, and it happens sometimes when they remake stuff that we like. Like they might do Ninja Turtles every 5 years, and 2 years they might do a great job with different interpretations, and 1 year they do it, and I'm like, that's not my Ninja Turtles, and everybody falls out or whatever. So we've seen where, you know, when you're trying to figure out that thing that works it out just right, it's a hard thing. And sometimes you seem like people were trying to give you what you want, and sometimes you seem like they just said F you and they're going to do what they want to do. I've seen both. I've seen it done both ways, and always kind of wondered, like, well, if you didn't care or you didn't like it, then why are you in here playing? Yeah. But, you know.
As we wrap up episode 3, can I give you the dumbest argument I saw online about this show so far?
Hit me.
So back in episode 1, we get our introduction to Osha, and she's doing her ship repair stuff, right? Outside in the spacesuit, and oh no, there's a leak and fire erupts, and she uses her cool little droid tool to put it out. And people are like, there's no fire in space. There's no fire in space. Losing their damn minds, there's no fire in space. Screaming to the sky about how stupid this show is and how horrible Disney Star Wars is and blah 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 blah, and people having to be like, did you watch any other Star Wars properties? Yeah. So anyway,
I did notice it. I didn't say anything though. I didn't want to seem petty. But did I notice it? Yeah. I figured. I was like, this don't need no extra problems. I'm not gonna pile on. Honestly, I'm just trying to take it as a story and kind of like, you know, disassociate it in a way. Like, okay, I'm just taking it for what it is.
It's not my story anymore. It's somebody else's story. Maybe he's Jake Skywalker. He's not my Luke Skywalker.
And so, okay. So, yeah, so that was 3. And so for episode 4, which was Day, this is pretty much of a thing where they know that May's alive. And everybody knows it, and May got away. And so there's a discussion and concern and trying to figure out, you know, hey, she done took out these 2. There's 1 more for her to take out. And wait, let me correct you. There's 1 more. She's coming for you as well. You know, all that. They're trying to recruit her sister before she leaves.
Soul does. And before we get to that, we got to get to the other thing that people are fucking melting down about. Okay, so you might remember, also going back to Phantom Menace, after they pick up Anakin from Tatooine and they come back to the Jedi Council, and they're sort of, you know, Padme's off doing her Senate stuff, and Qui-Gon brings Anakin with Obi-Wan to the council and be like, hey, so I'm pretty sure we got attacked by a Sith. And they're like, what? And one of the Jedi Masters, I'm going to try and pronounce this fucking correct, Master Kai Adi Mundi. That was the alien with the super tall head, like the 12 foreheads, right? We see him die Order 66 in Revenge of the Sith. He says there haven't been any Sith. The Sith were wiped out like 1,000 years ago. And that's like one of those things of like, is that a true or a cultural truth? Because it is a cultural truth as far as the Jedi are concerned, because we know Darth Sidious and Darth Plagueis and all the other Darths has been secretly doing all their stuff in the shadows for a long time. Master Kai Adi Mundi is in that scene.
Yes.
Where they're all talking, right? And they're like, well, what are we going to do? Now, here's the thing. They never say, oh, we got to go and find who she's working for, her Sith master. They think it's another sect. They think it's another, like, could it be a Jedi that left? Blah, blah, blah. They never say Sith.
Yeah, they don't.
She's been trained. Well, by who? And da-da-da-da-da.
We need to find out who.
So it's like, again, one of those things of like, well, if he was there, he knew that there was a Sith. And they're like, they never said it was a Sith, people. Just God. Now, God. Then they go and Soul's like, hey, Osha, before you try and slip out, because you want nothing to do with this anymore because you don't want to be going to capture your sister. Hey, come help us capture your sister.
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
Loops her back in.
Yes.
And we do get a nice little scene with Osha and Jackie
Yeah, I like that a lot.
first.
Yeah.
That was so. The writing for the most part is nothing horrible, and it's also nothing to write home about.
Right.
But there are bits where it's like, oh, that's a really good character beat,
Yes.
right? And her whole thing of like, I've lost so much, da da da, and that's why I failed in my Jedi training. And Jackie's like, well, it's not our loss that defines us; it's what we survive,
Exactly. That was
right? Which
beautiful.
is again it's a perspective shift,
Yeah. Mhm.
right? It's like, yes, you did lose a lot, but you survived through
Right.
that,
Right.
right? So it's like one of those things where like you could see Osha, if she has time to internalize that, could move past what she's lost. But in the moment, she's like, nope, I've lost enough. I'm out. And then Soul comes in and is like, I need your help.
Right.
I need your help. I'm not upset. Like the rest of the episode, I honestly did not have issues with. I'm trying to clock all the
Yeah.
things that happen.
And not that you have to. Like I said, to me, it was just kind of like pulling threads. It was just like, the thing was they were going to go look for her sister, basically. But that whole thing, like I said, it could have been a montage, basically. But like I said, they just kind of stretched it. It feels like for exposition to give you more about the characters and stuff.
I think they're setting things up.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think they're setting things up because I did get a mini spoiler this morning before I got to watch it, and it was just that the episode was short.
Yes, it was.
It's like 28 minutes.
Yes.
Like ignoring the credits at the end. So it's like it's much shorter. And someone went on Twitter and like pinged the person that wrote this episode.
Yeah.
Like, why is it so short? Why do you guys keep and they were like, look, it's a two-parter. Like, you'll see why, but
Right.
we had to cut it off there.
Yeah.
We had to get everything going so that we could cut it there. And then, like, there's a bunch that's going to take place in the next episode. So it's like,
Yeah.
well, and anyone that's watched it, like, the mysterious Dark Master shows up and shit's going to go down.
Right.
Right? So it's like, and I'm betting you, this episode's called Day because the sun goes down and the whole fight's going to be at night.
I dig that.
And I'm betting you the beetle things that were on the trees, that they woke one up and it attacked them, that's totally going to play a part. You don't set that whole thing up and have nothing come of it aside from like, ooh, weird creature. No, weird
Exactly.
creature that's going to be involved in the fight.
Sure.
Like, and we get to see a lot more of May, and I'm going to get the goddamn Kemir, right? Our little fake apothecary guy.
Yeah.
Really hard not to think he's her master, just playing a weakling.
Oh. Okay. Are we guessing?
Well, so I didn't get a chance to rewatch this part, but someone was saying when their ship lands and they're packing up their stuff, where someone was like, is he packing up like his lightsaber and trying to hide his helmet? I don't know. I just saw that comment. I didn't get a chance to check it. But it does seem really weird that we're giving him this much screen time and he's left alone on camera to fates unknown. And then a little while later, the big bad shows up. The other potential one that I saw was that
Wait.
You want to make your prediction? You want to make your prediction?
Yeah.
Okay.
My prediction that it's Mother.
You are not alone. There are other people that are like,
I think it's Mother.
It's Mother.
I think she is
Sell
probably
me,
so.
sell me.
Okay, I think she may be so hell bent on making the Jedi, because like she already had the stain for the Jedi, and she's the main person that said the thing about having issues with the Jedi and the fact they were coming for her children, and she felt it was a thing where they were taking children, and she wants them to look bad.
Listen, man, he's too important to the movement. He'd probably kill himself just to be one less
Jedi
around. His commitment is that deep.
Yeah, she'd be on a smear campaign, and she'd probably take out the whole household to prove that she ain't playing. Would she go to that length? Like I said, it's a cult. It's a religion. So you don't know. Because the thing about it too, when I thought about how everybody that was slain didn't look like they were hurt. You know what I mean? Their bodies wasn't smoking. They didn't look burned up. They didn't look sabered. It looked like it might have been sacrificed just to show that look what the Jedi did to us. Like they're part of that
Right.
whole thing to continue
Well,
the thing to make them look bad.
I was even wondering if through one of their, like they were, shit's going wrong, they try and do some sort of ritual that ties all their threads together,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Essentially linking their life force so they can do whatever,
One too many.
but someone gets killed and the feedback knocks them all out, right? So no one may have cut them down, burned them, or anything, but their own feedback, who knows,
I don't
right?
know. But I thought it was interesting that she was pulling the thread / the force from the sky, harnessing it, and we've seen a visualization of it. It looked like almost like I said, almost like an airbender, and she's giving it to her children one at a time. Now she got a chance to give it to May,
Right.
but not to the other sister.
And I felt like that was so there's this thing in certain Asian mystic traditions, right? Like Shaolin Temple thing type stuff like that, where someone in the temple will be the lineage holder. And so they've got all the secret knowledge, right? Everyone does the basic meditations, the advanced meditations, but there's the secret stuff, whatever it is, right?
Right.
And so there's always some guy where it's his job to learn all those things. And then at some point, you know, they'll usually go out and they'll teach people and blah, blah, blah. And then they have to come back and they have to train the next lineage holder to have all that stuff. So it seems like whatever this ritual is,
Right.
it gets download, right? Either that or it's unlocking her potential or
Something.
whatever, like linking her to the rest of the witches. But yeah, I like that. And of course we can see in the Acolyte logo, it was the two suns, the two moons, right? The
Right.
convergence,
Right.
light and dark, one red, one blue, very
Exactly.
subtle.
Mhm.
I don't think it's the mother,
Okay.
but if it turns out to be her, I'll be like, yep, okay, we're going with it. It's not outlandish enough. I just don't know if she's so in her cups on her rage
Mhm.
that she would be willing to screw with her daughters like that. Like if she knew one of them was alive,
Yeah.
May, the idea that she's playing May like this, like a cat's paw,
Mhm.
that seems out of character from what little time we've had with Mother, but it's possible. It's possible. She would certainly have the rage to want to screw over the Jedi like this, but so would theoretically a Sith apprentice.
True. I thought it was interesting too how May's change of heart on everything, where she was like, "Well, my sister's alive, so no reason for me to continue on. I'm just getting off the ride." I'm like, "Wait, what?" And then you go to jail. Well, I'll turn myself in. Oh, huh?
That did seem fast.
Now, do I think that she wanted to do that in her heart? Yes, but the realizing people don't even want to say that they were wrong. So for her to be like, "I'm turning myself in," and you done allegedly killed two Jedis and trying to kill a third that ended up dead because the Wookiee was dead by lightsaber and she's getting caught with her red-handed even though she didn't do it. Like, so yeah, I thought that was a lot.
I think
Do I understand why? Yeah, I think that she would want to, but that whole
it's the reasonable thing to be like, my sister's dead, fuck it, I'm going down this path of revenge, and being like, oh, wait, new information, right?
But like our conversation we had before, how it's hard for people to even admit that they were even wrong. That's funny how that ties in. We just had this conversation before this conversation about people sticking to what they know, even when they know they probably should change lanes. They will stay on that ride.
Avoiding identity collapse.
And it's not wrong that you would get off of that, but most people would not. And so she might be different, but it's weird to see.
I feel like if the tenor of her conversation with Kimir before she, sets up the trap and like, fuck this, I'm out. I'm gonna switch sides basically.
Right.
If she had been a little bit more like, I think upset and pissed off, like openly, like it was there a little bit of like, man, this whole thing of like, I gotta do this, but I gotta do, and he's pushing. He's like, you got to do this. We got to go here. Like, and that's part of why I'm thinking he's the one, because he's like, no, I need my cat's paw to go do her job. Let's go. You you got to stay on task with your master and what they want.
Yeah, yeah.
If she had been a little bit more like, no, I don't have to do this stupid shit, the stuff that doesn't make sense. Like,
Right.
it'd be one thing if I was like, I was still on board with like, screw the Jedi, but it's like, my sister is alive. I thought she was dead. Da, da, da. Like,
Some kind
it
of
would have
conversation or
made-
something.
right? But
Something,
it seemed like,
yeah.
at best, it was written as she was kind of not sure until she was sure, and she kept her cards to herself.
Yeah, because she was definitely moving slow and needing to take a break and taking off her jacket. And yeah, I got to fight a Wookiee, right? A Jedi. So I got to
Right.
need to rest up and
if
I'll
they
go
had-
get you water.
Right? If they had played it a little bit more, I would almost say blatantly duplicitous.
Right.
Right? Where like, if it had been the whole thing like, oh, I'm so tired, da da da, and like really selling the like, oh, I'm tired, and then the second he leaves,
Hmm.
her totally changing demeanor and like she kind of did a little bit, but I don't know. It just seemed
We didn't really see that. It was just like they
Yeah.
kind of went their separate ways. He went
yeah,
to
and
get
she
her
like took her
water.
jacket off, and it was
Right.
like it still seemed like she's like, I'm frustrated, as opposed
Yes.
to like, I just played you.
Yeah, because
Right?
she
It was
reluctant.
clear.
Yeah,
It was
she
clear when he came back and he got trapped that she had
Right.
played him, but
Right, because she was reluctant on the other ones too as well. He always was kind of in her ear to kind of make sure she kind of followed
Mhm.
through with it. So he always was
manipulating
there
her.
and kind of being her. What's a person that kind of walks around and have all the stuff you might need? They follow you around and kind of, I forgot the word for it, but he's like, I need my sword, and they go pull the sword. Oh, I need this arrow. Oh, great, I got
Squire.
this- Squire. Yeah, so it's almost like that kind of a thing. So, but yeah, he could be him too. It's quite possible. It's quite possible.
But then you
Um,
also got to have it's the whole thing of like, she leaves him tied up, which is not going to stop any Sith, even apprentice.
Right.
But that means he has to doodle run through the jungle. He knows where the Wookiee's place is already.
Yes.
Right? The whole thing is he's leading her there. So I could believe he somehow skips around and gets there first. Kills the Wookiee. But also, this does seem like Torben again, where unless he stealthed his way in there, the Wookiee probably would have put up a fight.
You would think they were just sitting in the chair.
Like, and so this actually is a point in the favor of your idea that it's the mother, because if the mother showed up, and you see everywhere in his abode they have that symbol, which
yes.
straight up looks like a yin yang.
Yeah.
So that right there is light side, dark side balance. Maybe
It's the same symbol that's on May.
it's on May and it's on Mother.
Yeah.
Right? It's their symbol.
Yes.
So he's clearly also still stuck. Our Wookiee is still stuck in that moment and whatever that tragedy was in his participation in it.
Right.
So it again could be he let himself get killed.
Yeah.
Right?
Looked like that kind of a situation.
But who would he let him kill him?
Somebody who he felt guilty towards.
Right? And that would probably be Mother. So, because otherwise it's got to be the dark Sith, maybe not a Sith, snuck in there and killed him, or just was, I don't know.
I don't know. It wasn't in his back. It was across his chest. While
Yeah,
we sitting in the
it's
chair.
not a backstab.
No. No, it's just, yeah.
And then, of course, that sets up May to be inside and be the potential accused yet again.
Hmm.
Because clearly, they're trying to set up some sort of, false accusation scenario,
Yes.
right? To reveal this whole thing, and it's just not working out.
Yeah.
And it was interesting too. So the Jedi finally show up. They're yelling inside, and May's like, fuck. I was going to turn myself in, but now I'm going to look hella guilty.
Right.
So I'm just going to be quiet and not say anything.
Right. They'll kill me
she
on
can-
sight.
Right? And she can see Osha is behind them.
Hmm.
Right? And they're like, Osha, stay back. I'm going to come back to Yord in a minute. I got things to say about Yord. But they're all watching and looking towards, the house, and where we get Osha, and then again, sort of classic horror trope of
Right.
you see more of the space behind the person in the framing,
Yep.
and you just see this shape come into focus,
Pull the
floating
Batman.
down,
Pull the Batman.
right?
89
floating,
Batman.
floating down out of the trees.
Mhm.
and now you got to see that mask I was talking about with
Yeah.
the teeth.
Yeah.
It's a good look.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a good look. And walks up to OSHA and she's like, oh fuck. And there's a moment, of course, turns on the lightsaber, and for a split second you're like, did he run her through? Nope. And he
Nope.
just shoves her out of the way. All the Jedi are like, game on, lightsabers go.
Right.
And then does a big force push, and the hands are slight. The only detail I picked up of whoever this, the Dark Master is, the hands are slight. And so that could be Mother, or it could be Kimir, because he's got a light build. So it could be either one at this point.
That's true.
And that's where the episode ends.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
And shit's
that's-
going to kick off in the next episode and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
I'm trying to, again, like we do this so many times with these freaking shows, of like, what is the structure of what's going to happen in the next set of episodes? Right? How much are they going to be able to expand, complete? Oh, we have an awake child. I will be back in a minute.
Okay.
5 hours later.
Boys have been put back to sleep. We were talking about what they're gonna do with these next episodes.
Yeah.
I think obviously 5 is they're gonna have the big old brawl. Big old brawl. Most of those Jedi's gonna fucking die.
Thanks
I
for the
think-
confidence for the Jedi's.
Well, I mean, they brought a whole bunch of nobodies. We haven't even been given their names. So, you gotta have some cannon fodder.
Yeah.
So some of them are gonna go down. The really dangerous thing is, at some point, I think it's towards the end of the episode, where Soul's trying to like get OSHA to come along, right?
Right.
Or I think it's like it might be after, I don't know, it might be after the beetle thing or something. But he basically says, like, I think as they're coming up to the Wookiee, of like, once we get this settled, I'll tell you everything.
Right.
Which is like, motherfucker, there it is. Like the stuff that you haven't been sharing, right? The stuff that we don't know from the other part of the flashback and da 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 da. So that could bode very poorly for Soul.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of interesting that came out of nowhere, considering she wasn't asking for it. It wasn't like she was reluctant. It seemed like that's what he would have said to her to get her to go.
Mm-hmm.
Not middle of them walking and she didn't ask for it.
But if they did that structurally, then she would have been pestering him the whole time of, what the fuck do you mean everything else?
Well, at least have her ask or
Right?
question something or whatever. Like, why are we really out here? Why do you have me here? I don't want to kill my sister. Something.
Right?
But I hear you.
And Soul's whole thing should have been like, well, I don't want to kill her either. The whole point is to try and take her alive, blah, blah, blah. But
Right.
it sets up, and I'm just sort of thinking through this now, of Soul dies, which means OSHA doesn't get an easy answer, right? And we may not get one till episode 7 when we get the other part of the flashback. But that presumably will leave, because I don't think they're going to kill Jackie. I don't think they're going to kill Yord, right? But it leaves the youngins, Yord, Jackie, and OSHA, and possibly May, to figure shit out, right?
Yeah. When he told that one commander that he wanted to be the one to go get her, I figured he was dead. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
let me bring her in. Oh, okay. That means only one of you coming back. So when I heard him say that, I was kind of thinking, because she almost warned him. So when you get the warning and you're ignoring the blatant warning for your own purpose or your whatever, then, stupid games get stupid prizes.
Yeah, I'm really...
Not that
yeah,
I want
really-
him to, but I kind of thought that when he was, let me in there, Captain. Let me go in there for one last ride. I got this one. I got this one.
It's got those vibes.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, okay, yeah, Soul might be out, episode 5, and then we've got an episode 6, which should be kind of like, I think what was it, episode 7 in Andor, where it's all the fallout of whatever that big fight's gonna be.
Yeah.
Right? Get all the fallout, and then probably 7's gonna be the flashback to what actually happened, and then we gotta have whatever the conclusion is. I know. I think they're gonna try and wrap this whole up in one season, would be my guess. I
That's
don't
fair.
know. But yeah, there's still so much unknown. Like you can't really make any other predictions beyond that. Ugh.
Right. No, that's fair. I will say so far this has been having a really decent pace. I'll give it that. It's been entertaining and interesting and stuff I haven't seen before. I'll give it that. The characters are likable, so I'll give it that. So I'm looking forward basically to what's going to happen for the rest of this season. I know it has its issues. I know people have issues with it, but it's already done. It is what it is. That's kind of like my approach for the whole thing.
Damn, the boy's still awake. Hold on. Sorry.
5 hours later.
I think Aiden needs you to land this ship.
I was literally texting Dana like, he's down. I'm going back to recording. She's like, nope, awake again.
All right, we can wrap it up. I will say this. We had more issues with other things that we thought was going to be more in line with what we were expecting. Of all the shows we done talked about, we've been through it. And I will say, this hasn't been more disappointing than some of the other ones we dealt with, especially this early on. We've been in train wrecks that was after episode 1. We were like, it's going to be a crunchy episode 2 conversation. We're going to...
No, I'm still on board. Like,
So-
all my quibbles are small.
Yeah,
My
yeah,
quibbles
I'm
are
enjoying
small.
it.
Like,
Yeah.
Yord, be less of a dick. That's my quibble.
Right. I think if he didn't have that, he wouldn't have anything to do there, to be honest.
True.
So that's his purpose, and to have that crazy ass
Like,
hair.
can we give Yord can we give Yord a beat this episode? Yeah, have him be a kind of a dick to OSHA.
Right,
Like,
right.
okay, there's your beat, Yord.
Yeah, so it's interesting. So maybe he'll do something at the very end that's gonna kind of be like, oh, he's a little bit of a badass. But so far, he's just there to,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see how he holds up combat wise next episode, because there's gonna be some shit going down.
I can't wait. I'm looking forward to it. Real quick before we go, so remember I was telling you that project I was working on, trying to get all those episodes moved over. Because, like I said, Jay's other podcast, it was an experiment of me kind of putting different conversations I had with different people in one place, just because they didn't have another place to go. Because I had the one-on-one conversations with the JN one when I'm talking to just an individual, and then I had the Movie Bench Quarterback podcast with Captain Keith and Wayne DeQ, and we're talking movies and stuff. But then I started like, okay, if I need to keep moving on with doing different things, let me see who's available, and let's start talking some movie reviews, some TV shows, whatever, music.
Right.
And so just kind of, stockpiling conversations, me and you would hook up and we'd talk, hook up with Drew or Sabrina or Greg or somebody like that. And sometimes Captain Keith on his own, sometimes Wayne on his own. And I guess time went by pretty fast, but I got like over almost 200 episodes. Just me having these one-off conversations, or us having our conversations, with our shows we're doing with the Star Wars stuff. And then
It's
also,
a catalog.
Also, yeah. And so when I was thinking about it, I'm like, well, it's not a guarantee that everybody who wants to hear about us talking about Star Wars may not also want to hear about some other stuff I might be talking about.
Right.
And even if they do like all of it, it's still kind of hard to get through when you're scrolling, and we're kind of talking in between seasons. So we might have a season of something, and then I do 15 other podcasts about other stuff, and then the new season of something starts back, and it's kind of lost in the shuffle. And I think our conversations and our Discord is too good to be kind of lost in the sauce, and should be easily accessible. So I'm trying hard to kind of get it all moved over. I have a lot of it moved over, and I'll be done in probably about a week with all the rest of it. And then even though on the J Other podcast we have the Acolyte stuff on here, I'm going to also have it tandem with the other channel as well as soon as I get it up to date, because I want everything to be in line. But all of our shows, like Obi-Wan and speaking of questionable shows, The Mandalorian and stuff like that, and Andor and all that. And it's funny because I've been listening through some of the episodes before I move them over, because I'm trying to clean them up, because I'm trying to also label it and tag it the right way and all this other kind of stuff. So I'm really trying to do it the right way so it'd be accessible for everybody. So I'm hoping everybody who's listening to it on here would also move over to the other channel as well. If you're here for like the Star Wars stuff, that's the place to go. I'm gonna put it on both channels, but the main housing for it is going to be on the new channel, so it can have all that goodness in one place. And so working title, which we've been using before, but it's Talking Jedi, a Star Wars podcast with Jay and Ryan. And so it's going to be a standalone. We might play around with the name or whatever, but that's what it is for now. So
Right.
if you're here, please go over there and subscribe to there too. That channel is a little behind, but it's catching up quickly. And maybe before we even get done with this season of the Acolyte, I should be done by then. So, and like I said, it just makes it easier. And I appreciate everybody, listening. I appreciate people going down, scrolling, trying to find the episodes. Also, please share it with others if you know folks who like it. This has been great. It was unexpected. I've known Ryan forever. We've been cool forever. I think we did more talking and socializing with each other through these conversations than in real life. Because in real life, we do catch up, but usually it's because the movies are going and we're talking and we're just with the boys and, it's this cross banter kind of stuff or whatever. But I really feel like we kind of solidified our relationship through these conversations, which means a lot to me, which is really cool. But it's just kind of interesting how that went. Like I said, some of the shows, we're not saying all the shows were a hit. And if you listen and watch these shows, that they wasn't all a hit. But believe me when I say our conversations, it makes it worth it makes it worth it. Like the banter
I can go back and
alone.
listen to Boba Fett again.
Right, the banter alone is so entertaining that you don't even need the show. We'll talk you through the show. We'll give our insights and comments and all that kind of stuff, or you want to rewatch a show or whatever. But I'm just saying a lot of those episodes are definitely worth going and revisiting. I record them, I edit them, and I'm enjoying listening to them, laughing at conversations and different things that we're saying, stuff that's going on and whatever. It's like a time machine, so it's really cool.
We have a good time regardless of how good the content we're talking about is.
That's the truth. That you summed it up well. So that's what's going to be happening over there. But like I said, it's going to be on both. But it's going to now have like a dedicated show that's just for all our Star Wars stuff. And I think with that too, it might give us more reason just to have extra stuff to throw in there or whatever. And Ryan, I know you have stuff going on with you. So depending on you have time and stuff like that, you might want to have some other related stuff that you could, because we touched on a lot of stuff. So it's a lot of things that could be kind of implemented over there as well. So that's for the future, but it's definitely going to be a place that's going to house this sci-fi kind of talk and stuff, Star Wars kind of stuff for sure. And like I said, we appreciate folks coming through, listening to us, hear us banter, getting into it and all that kind of stuff. I know there's long gaps in between sometimes with these shows. And so it means a lot that you come back to check us out to see what we have to say. Any final words for you, young Ryan?
I still got to do cat chores.
Okay. The world keeps spinning.
We go to these fake worlds to get away from the real world sometimes.
That's true.
But let us keep you company while you're cleaning cat litter.
Somebody got to do it. All right, so it's been Jay and Ryan discussing The Acolyte, episode 3 and 4, Destiny and Day. Until next time, peace.
Not in the next episode.
Oh, good point. All right.
Later.
Peace.